give you a chance to ask different questions after the lecture as well. So after getting the information of different users, actually of the intruder, of the attacker, so he tries to get access of the information. After getting the information, he can be able to get an access to the system. So there's another process of take intrusion detection is that privilege escalation. Privilege escalation is the process to find out different flaws, different errors in the system. So once the different flaws or different errors are find out from the system, then the attacker will be able to get the control of the system or get the access of the information which is used by the user. So this process or this procedure is called the privilege escalation. Then there's another type of process that is actually called as a methodology that is used by an attacker, is that he tries to hide his different tricks, means what methods he has used to get the information of the system, what are the different procedures he applied to get the information of the system. So he tries to get the information, and he tries to hide those tricks so that he cannot be detected by the user or by the you say security expert. So he tries to hide himself. So this process is actually called the covering tricks. So these are the different methodologies can be used by an attacker to to get the information, or to find out different flaws in the system, or to hide different tricks which he has used to get information from the system. And then we also discussed different methods, that how the most important method that the attacker will apply to get an access to the system is that he tries to guess the login information. So one of the most important login information is a password. So he tries to guess the password. So he uses different methods to guess the password. Like for example, he can use default passwords, or he can guess different password on the basis of the user. And he can also use a password file, for example, to get the information of the user. Or for example, he can use some software to get to brute force the password, or to search for the password that is used by the user. So these are the different methods the intruder or the attacker can apply to get the information of the system. And then we have the method that is uh, how the intruder can get the password. So there could be the different ways to get the password by the intruder. So for example, he can get the password through by using you can say intruder software, by installing you can say intruder into the system from for which he wants to get the information, like for example Trojan hearts. So he installed that software, for example a piece of software into the system, and then he can be able to get the information. or for example, he can get the information through the network from which the data is transferred. So he can also get the information by that method as well. And then he can also impersonate himself. For example, for example, he can act himself as a legitimate user, and then he can get the information from the user, or from the by of the user. So this is actually the method, as we have discussed, is also called masquerading. So these are the different methods can be applied by the intruder to get the information, the login information, because it is important information in the sense that that user gets enters into the system using this information, and that's why the intruder or the attacker tries to get that information so that he can get access to the system to get the information of the system. And then we have uh, and then we have uh, other methods we can discuss, that uh, these methods can be used by an attacker in order uh, to uh, uh, to uh, you can say control the intruder, or to control the you can say attacker. So he can, for example, once he has detected that that particular attacker is going to attack the system, so he can block that attacker, or for example, he can limit the functionalities of the attacker, or for example, he can improve its security mechanism, so that whenever any attacker tries to get control to the system or get the information of the system, the security mechanism will detect that, and then either to block it or to limit the different functionalities of the intruder. So these are the different methods which can be used by an attacker, which can be used by an intruder in order to control the system, or in order to improve the security of the system, so that if any attacker tries to get uh, or tries to enter into the system, and then he detect the attacker, and once he detect that attacker, he can also block that attacker, or he can also limit the different functionalities of the attacker, or he can also improve the security mechanism of the system, so that an attacker cannot get the information, or cannot get the important information from the system. So these are the different methods can be used by the security mechanism or security experts to improve the security of the system. And as we have discussed also, that there are the different methods of the intrusion detection, like there's a statical anomaly detection method, and there's a rule-based anomaly detection. So if we further categorize the statical anomaly detection, it consists of the threshold as well as a profile-based anomaly detection. And there's another type of anomaly detection that is called the rule-based detection. It consists of the anomaly. It is based on the anomaly as well as a penetration identification. So these are the different methods which can be used by an intrusion detection method. Like for example, the information can be gathered by the intruder through method that is called, for example, uh, auditing records. Auditing records are those records which are the records of the events which are generated into the system. Means whatever the functions are used, whatever the functions are performed. So these different records are recorded as an audit records, and the intruder can get the information about these records through these audit logs. And so we need to protect these audit logs so that the intruder cannot get the important information from these logs. So we can use different methods in order to protect such kind of logs so that an intruder cannot get the information from them. And then, as we have discussed, that there are the different types of intrusion detection methods, like statistical anomaly detection. So there are the different kinds of statistical anomaly detection, like threshold detection and profile-based detection. So the threshold detection is the type of detection method where there are the number of events, the limit of number of events are defined, for example. So if that limit is exceeding to the limit that is defined, that means the threshold, that is a limit of the events, has been exceeded. So that is why it can be considered as an anomaly. So this is actually the method, one of the method that can be used by the intrusion detection method. Intrusion detection, you can say intrusion detector or intrusion detection procedure that can be applied to get to know about the intruder. Another type of method that is called the profile based method. So profile based method, it is actually depends on the user behavior. So the different privileges are defined about the user, that what functions can user can do, what are the different functions can user perform, what are the different privileges can be assigned to the user. So these different privileges, different functions uh, can be used by an intrusion detection method to detect that if a user is actually deviating or changing its behavior, so that means it is actually can be considered as an intruder. So if a user changes his behavior, changes his functions, which are changes privileges which are given to the user, then it can be considered that that is actually the type of intrusion detection method that is called the profile-based intrusion detection. So, do you have any question up to now? You can um, send me the question through chat panel as well. So after the lecture, I also uh, uh, will ask. You can ask different questions uh, uh, after the lecture as well. But until now, you can send the message through the chat panel so that I can also answer that question to you. And then we have another type of method that is actually called as a rule based method. Rule based method is is a type of method where we apply. So, rule-based method is a type of method where we apply different rules on the events. For example, if any method, if any event is actually deviating from that rule, then that would be considered as an anomaly. So we say that this is actually a method that is based on different rules which are applied to uh, uh, to get uh, to get the information about the intruder, or to know about the intruder that is deviating from his actual behavior. So there are the different intrusion detection methods, like for example, SNART or some other intrusion detection methods. So we define different rules on those intrusion detection methods, and then on the basis of those rules, uh, the intruder gets information or know that this particular event which is used by the attacker or intruder is actually deviating from his actual behavior. So if it is deviating from its actual behavior, then it is considered that this is actually called as a rule-based intrusion detection method. And then by the rule-based methods, we can use different systems. Like for example, as I said, in those systems or in the software, we define different rules, and on the basis of the rules, if in any particular event is deviating, or if any particular record that is actually login information that is in the system, and then we compare that login information with the different rules which are defined into the system. So then that is actually the procedure that is applied by the intruder detector, that for example how he can be able to know that that particular event is actually the intruder. So the different rules are defined in the system, different rules are defined in the software, for example, the intrusion detection method, and then that intrusion detection method can detect the different intrusions on the basis of these different rules. And then we have another type of method that is actually called the base rate fallacy. Uh, what does it mean, base rate fallacy? Because we have the intrusion detection methods. So it may be possible that uh, it may produce more number of false positives. It may produce less number of false positives. False positives means if it's actually uh, uh, there the intrusion is detected, but that is not actually the intruder, or that is not actually the attack. The attack has been detected, but it is actually not the attack. So that is called the false positive. So it is possible that the intrusion detection method uh, uh, can detect more number of false positives, or can detect less number of false positives. So the one of the feature that defines the quality of the intrusion detection method is that it produces less number of false positives. So if it produces less number of false positives, that means it is of the good quality, and it can better detect the different intrusions by the system. So that is actually called the base rate policy. And then we have different types of intrusion detection methods, like uh, uh, we have as we have discussed, they are the host-based intrusion detection methods that is actually installed on a single system, and then it can detect the information from that system. So that is actually called the host-based intrusion detection method. And then there's another type of intrusion detection method that is called the distributed intrusion detection method. The distributed intrusion detection method is a type of intrusion detection method that where the different intrusion detection systems are installed at different systems, and then they get the information from that, and through that information we can detect the intrusions from the system. Like for example, here the figure is given here in order to further explain that what is a distributed intrusion detection method. So this figure defines, for example, there's a central manager here. So they are the different. It is connecting to other networks, for example, here, and there are the different hosts are here. So every host has installed different you can say systems to get the information, and then it gives the information to the central system. So that is actually called as a distributed type of uh, intrusion detection method, because the information we get from different systems, and the intrusion detection system is distributed throughout the network, and to get the information about the different intruders, or to get the information about the different attacks. So that's why we say that this type of information system, this type of intrusion detection system or method is called a distributed intrusion detection method. Then we further explain how we can implement the intuition detection method. For example, here is a central manager. It can send different queries to the different systems, and these different systems, which are actually here in the distributed intuition detection system, they are called as the agents, for example. And from that, it get the information about the different systems. So it consists of different information, like a host audit records, for example, operating system OS audit records, or operating system audit records. So different event records are generated on the host, and whenever the central system or central manager, for example, tries to get the information about these different records, so then he gets the information through different agents, and on the agents different events are running, are on the different systems, the different events are running, and different records are recorded in the form of the audit records. Either it would be of the different events, or the of the operating system events. So these are the different events which actually uh, are running into the system, and then the intrusion detection method here gets in that information and gives that information to the central system. So it may be that the central system may define different rules, or it can have a it can apply other type of intrusion detection method in order to know that either that particular event that is generated on the system is actually is intrusion, or is a take or not. So that is how this distributed intrusion detection system works. So it gets the information from the different agents, and every agent gets the information from the different audit records or different events which are generated on the system, or which are running on the system, and then that information is given to the central system. Then on the basis of that, it actually know that either that particular event is actually intrusion or not, either that particular event is a take or not. So that's how the distributed intrusion detection system works. And then we have other type of method that can be used uh, by intrusion detection system in order to protect the system, like for example the honeypots. So these are the procedures, or these are the mechanisms which are used to detect unauthorized use of information. If any of the information that is accessed by unauthorized user, or if it is a legitimate user, and if it is not given authority to that user to get the information from the system, and then he tries to get that information, then that is actually also called as a you can say it's also the responsibility of the this the honeypots to know about that, either if there's a legitimate user, either he is accessing those type information which is not given access to him, or it is not a legitimate user and he tries to get the information about the system. So that's actually the functionality of the honeypots. So the main functionality of honeypots is to protect the system from or to detect the unauthorized access of the information. And then how we can manage different passwords, because we may be using different passwords at a time, and we can have the different systems as well. We can have a different password for the different users. So how we can manage that type of information. So we can manage that type of information through different ways, because that is very important information, in the sense that the intruder tries to get access to the system using that information. So that is why it is very important information that can be used by the intruder in order to get an access to the system. So we need to properly manage that information, either through by using different files or by using different other means to manage that information. And we also need to encrypt the password as well, or we can also use different other methods to secure the password as well, so that an intruder cannot get an easy access to that password and can log in into the system. So that's that. So these are the different methods can be applied by the intruder in order to get the information from the system. So that's why we need to properly manage that. We need to properly secure that. So we can properly secure that by using different security methods, like different encryption methods can be used, different hashing methods can be used in order to secure the password from the intruder or from the taker. And then we can also define different policies for the password, like for example that much uh, whenever if you have ever used the security policies for the password. So we have a file, for example, we define there that how much would be the length of the password, what would be the characters, letters and punctuations in the password, what letters and what characters we can use in the password. So what would be the time duration of the password. So these are the actually different methods of managing the password. Either we can use that password, or we can update that password at the particular time, and then after that time we ask the user to update the password. So these are the different policies which are defined whenever we uh, we define the passwords. So in this way we can manage the password. So the intruder